I think you do such good personal branding without actually doing personal branding. And I think so many people in our world just go to work, come home, and then go to work the next day, and they don't do anything to promote themselves. And I say promote themselves, like they don't do anything other than the day job. And I just think so many people are going to get caught out going forwards because they're not going to get the good roles or contacts that will make a massive difference to them. So I think that's something you do probably better than 99% of people.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, I really do, because, it's interesting. So I had ex-boss contact me and wanted help to start her own, to get more out there in the space. And she just said, you've done such a great job. Would you mind helping me? And I'm like, no, not at all. I'm more than happy to help people, figure it out. And
I agree.
Just remain genuine, I think, is the biggest thing, right? Not trying to be something you're not. But yeah, getting out there, because most people in procurement, right, or sourcing, you're right, they do their day jobs, they go home, and that's it. And I think that's why you don't see a lot of people out there talking. And that's why I think there's a nice space there and gap for some people to kind of get out there and start doing that, knowing if your company allows for it. Because I will say I have talked to some people where basically they'll get fired.
I think it's crazy that businesses don't want their staff to talk outside of the business unless it's supporting the business.
They're very conservative, right? So, and I get from some industry standpoint of view that, there's limited number of suppliers, and so you don't want to give the game away. But at the end of the day, there's only so many strategies. There's only so many people in the industry. So to understand that, it's not rocket science. People can figure it out, and people can figure out who you're working with. And I mean, it's not anything that's, again, not rocket science, right? So for people to put that strict restraint, thinking they're going to have a business competitive edge, I just don't personally see it, but maybe I'm in the wrong industry for it. I don't know if you've seen somebody have a competitive edge because of being able to kind of keep their, in-house secret, but to me, no matter where I've gone in pharma, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I completely agree. I mean,
I just don't see the need to be so restrictive.
Defense procurement, which, I mean, I obviously have to be careful from a security perspective of what I say and things like that. But I mean, I still find ways to talk about it. No business. I mean, from a security perspective, I shouldn't always necessarily be on social, and that's just general advice for anyone that works in this area. But I mean, I've never struggled to talk about procurement, supply chain, contract stuff in this world because I can just avoid talking about the specific supplier. And I think you touched on a really good point because you said there's only so many ways of doing things. Like, knowledge isn't scarce anymore. Like, everyone knows how to do things. You can type in on Google, how do I do this? And you'll have a bunch of, you'll get Forbes or a Business Insider or some academic journal telling you exactly what to do, and someone who's done it, or a piece of software that will do it for you.
Yeah, there's so much more information, I guess, out there now today because of the web, and it allows for people just to, absorb it all. And it's the same, right? It's the same. Nothing's been updated. You got the purchasing chessboard, the 7-step methodology, and maybe back in the day when the web wasn't as, robust, maybe it made sense to kind of keep your strategies safe and protected. But now there are only so many ways. Yeah. What's the saying to, cut an onion, right? There's only so many ways to skin a cat.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's really sad if people can't go and express their own opinions outside of their business that they work for on social anymore. I think it's a sad point, but yeah, you're right. Like, so many people still can't do it. I mean, for the people that can do it, I mean, how do you think they could go about it? I mean, you obviously, you've got a LinkedIn profile, you post on LinkedIn, and you use your miscategory management blog as your main emphasis. I mean,
exactly, that's it, right? So I kind of take the company I currently work for and take it out of the picture. Like, I don't attach the name of my company to anything I do. Nowhere do I mention it. I'll say certain things, but I will never specifically call them out. And I view it as something separate. I view it as a second job in a sense. And so that page, I've got the statement, this doesn't reflect my current, employer's positioning on anything, just because to me it is something separate. It has nothing to do with what my current position is. It's something that is me branding myself more? Is that me representing a company, right? Or representing what we're doing? And I think by making that separation and not, clearly calling out who I work for, it just makes it that much easier. So if they ever did come back to me and say, hey, we don't like this, and then say, hey, listen, your name's not on here anywhere, right? So you can't really, this is like a separate business or a separate thing outside of work. So for them to be able to really see, which I think when people are in larger corporations, but if you're not, it's, you just run the risk of having them come back to you and say, this isn't on brand and not part of our strategy, and we want you to yank this.
Yeah, you're right. You can't, you're almost piggybacking otherwise on an established brand, just potentially to get viewership or listeners, which isn't cool really at the end of the day, and nor should your contracts allow for that if you are employed. So yeah, no, that's great advice. I think just detach yourself from whatever it is you do as your day job. I mean, as part of that though, how is it like? I mean, you write a lot of content. I know the articles they're not War and Peace. They're not massively long. They're very sharp, concise. Probably because people have horrendous attention spans, like we said. But I mean, how is it you come up with the content regarding it? Is it based on what you do at work and you kind of desensitize it so no one really knows what it is you're talking about in that world? Like, how is it you come up with the content?
Yeah, so some of it is that, right? So some of it to me is therapy, where I come home and I'm like, oh, these stupid business partners, or this ridiculous person today really made me mad. And my boss will always say to me, oh, there's going to be a blog about this, isn't there? I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But at the same time, I also try to stay on like industry trends and what I think is going to be, like sustainability for the future, I think is going to be a huge focus. So trying to figure out where the industry is going and get ahead of that. But yeah, a lot of it is really, my background and experience. And even a lot of times my coworkers will say to me, hey, I just had this, terrible instance with this business partner and these reference checks. You need to do a blog on that. Have you thought about that? And you know what? I haven't thought about it, but that's a great idea. So even now, because people know it and read it enough, they'll say, hey, what about this or that? So it's nice when other people can feed you ideas, because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to come up with new ideas constantly and constantly churn, good content out. But yeah, I do like to keep it short. I'm not going to write anything that's, pages and pages long, because I don't even have, I think, the ability to read my own stuff if it's that long. I don't want to have to edit it and go through it and read it.
Yeah.
So maybe my own ADHD helps make it kind of short and to the point. But I think this is my personality too, right? I just kind of get to the point. I don't need to drone on forever. Just get to the point, say what you need to, and move on.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, like getting straight to the point, so much more effective, I think, online, especially regardless of whether it's in your workplace. I think sometimes when you're at work, you can sort of be a little bit more long-winded. Sometimes people don't like you getting straight to the point and being very direct. But I think that's the only way you can do it online to get above. Well, there's a lot of noise online, isn't there? There's a lot of people doing stuff. I mean, for me personally, sometimes I do good content, and I know sometimes I do horrendous content. But I say horrendous content because I look at the analytics and I can see what works and doesn't work. I mean, do you do anything like that? Do you see what's got good views on your blog, and then do you look at maybe LinkedIn analytics just to see how many views you got, how many likes, how many comments?
Yeah, so I actually, Kelly Barner, I'm sure you're aware of her. She gave me a great advice to get this app that basically manages all your social media in one place. And although I didn't choose the one that she had, I use Crowdfire. That also has analytics across everything. And it has, and I can go back to my old posts, whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever, and I can go back and see like how many people clicked through what and how many people liked. So I can see which content really people responded well to, and the stuff where people are like, wah, there just wasn't, it just kind of felt dead, where you think this is the greatest idea, and then people just aren't, engaging or interested in it. So yeah, I do tend to go back and look at that. I'll look back at WordPress too, and see, kind of my daily and weekly and what's going on, and have I produced enough, or, why am I falling short? Some days are better than others, but I always actively manage and look at it to see what's working well and what doesn't, because otherwise, how are you going to improve, right? Nobody's perfect.
No, I get. I mean, I like numbers, so I like seeing where traffic's coming from, where people click on, where people click off, if that data is available. See, like you're massively clued up as well on this, so you know how to look at all the analytics. Yeah. So that's really good. I think just people coming into this fresh, especially in procurement, category management, supply chain, it's quite a traditional industry or profession, let's call it.
Yeah.
And I just don't think people have the background knowledge to do this on their own straight away and get results fast. So I think that's massively beneficial to actually get down into the numbers and look at what performs and what doesn't. And I mean, do you then tailor it more so to what performs, or does that not really impact you? Do you still write stuff just for the sake of writing it because you think it's something good, even though you may think it might not do so well?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I always took the blog and was like, listen, this is my stupid little blog. Like, I don't care if anybody reads it or not. I'm just going to write it for me. And if people read it and find value, great. That's a, added value for them. But, I write things where even like agency management. So I did a presentation on it, and then I wrote a white paper on it. And I understand not everybody will buy into it, but it's something that I strongly believe in. And so I was, dedicated to get it out and be seen as of expertise in that area. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those things, whether or not people find it valuable, who knows? But for me, it was just something I wanted to do. And, like I said, a lot of times this is therapeutic. So whether or not people find, humorous or not, at least it gets it out and lessens my stress for the day.
No, I think that's great. I mean, I think it's good that you're saying you're aware of the numbers, you'll look at the numbers, you're not 100% motivated by the numbers, although you have to have some motivation by the numbers.
Yes,
it is for you.
Yeah.
So that's great. I mean, so since you've been, go.
Yeah, no, like this short content, I found it's funny that you say, you don't write War and Peace, but I do the Monday Category Management Monday pro tips.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you that it's literally like not even a 2-minute read. That gets more traction than anything, because it is so short and so concise, and people can easily just like click, read it in a minute or two, and then, kind of keep going with their day, where it's not something that's going to take you 20 minutes to get through. I think the shorter, more concise you get, the better, feedback I've at least seen from my perspective of my blog. So keeping it short is always, I think, a good idea.
Yeah, I think, yes, that's spot on. I mean, I think you'll get opportunities to go in depth. I mean, I've obviously looked through your profile and everything. I've seen that you've got a bunch of speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. You've become, is it like some sort of advisory board member? You've done all this sort of stuff because, by the looks of things, through your miscategory management blog, and that kind of gives you the opportunity to go more in depth at that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Whereas before, had I not done this blog, all this speaking event, doing even like this podcast, doing, webinars, things of that sort have just kind of come naturally out of having, my blog out there and being an influencer in the space. Whereas you think if you're just going in and out of your daytime job, look at all the things you could be missing out on, right? And I'm not actively going out and seeking tons of opportunities, for speaking engagements, this and that. More people are reaching out to me than I'm reaching out to them. So to me, it speaks to, it may be a silly little blog, but it really has such a great impact on your overall career. Or at least it has for me, right? Because I'm open to trying all these new things. It's kind of silly not to do it, or not to at least be on LinkedIn, maybe write a couple papers there or some information, because it just provides such a great networking experience. And then all these following opportunities to speak and, get on Thinkers 360 or whatever it is that, you're really focused on. It's just, it's amazing what, again, I'll say it, my stupid little blog can do. It really is more impactful than I could have ever imagined. And for that, I am grateful. I'm glad I did start writing and that people at least find some of it humorous.
No, that's incredible, really. I mean, I was just on your LinkedIn profile, and there's just a whole list of things that have come out of doing that, and they're not the everyday experience that you would get if you were going to and from work and not doing anything else in addition. I think it's incredible, actually.
Yeah. It's amazing how you go from 0 to 100 miles per hour almost overnight, and then all these different engagements just come at you, and it's a great experience. And doing your day-to-day job is great, but it's not going to get you the ability to do any of these things. You also have to be one of those people who's driven too, right? So if you're not one of those people who are if you're just happy where you're at and you're happy, that's great. But if you really want more, and if you're really truly driven for your own career, you kind of have to put yourself out there to be able to get any of these type of engagements. At least that's what I've found. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's the best advice going, actually. If you want to progress and you want to put the hard work in, this is a great way to do it, is just to put content out there around your specialty. I mean, you focus purely on category management and procurement, and obviously a bit of supply chain, and the wider piece comes into that, but you've niched down quite a bit, and it works wonders.
So I mean, to think a blog would turn into this, I never would have thought, right? But it just, one thing happens, somebody reaches out to you, and then another person, you're like, wow, this is really cool that you get to make, you get to network without being, if you're not an extrovert, without really networking, right? So it's not like, having to go out of your way and go to conferences and do all of these things.
Yeah, so many people are introverted, and they don't want their to go to all these conferences, to go to all these events, meet hundreds of people that they have no idea who they are until they get there, and exchange business cards and do whatever else they're going to do. That can be massively daunting. So starting off on LinkedIn, starting off with a blog. I mean, you use, I think, WordPress, isn't it, for your basis of your blog? I mean, there's other platforms like Medium that people can use for absolutely free and make money off of. So there's so many ways that people can do it for free with no real, I'm going to say with no real exposure. I mean, obviously online, you're going to get trolled at times. You're going to get people dismiss you and give you nasty comments, and probably, sadly, professionals in your own industry and profession. I don't know. I mean, have you had to navigate that at all?
You know what? Not really. It's funny. I have another friend who has a blog, but it's more about, finances and having a very organized life. And she's saying how she gets all these trolls. And I was talking to her, and I made the mistake of saying, you know what, I write a business blog, so I really haven't experienced that. And I'm kind of grateful I haven't. And soon as I said that, of course, the next day I published somebody says, hey, this content's old. and I'm like, oh, here we go. This is what I get for saying that, nobody trolls business accounts. Yeah. So, but it's very few and far in between, and most people are supportive. So I think that's kind of the motivation for me, where I don't feel like with business, what are you going to control? Like, what is there to say, oh, no, this is dumb, this is a bad idea? I mean, fine, that's your opinion. I mean, I respect it, but I may not agree with it. So, yeah, I don't think the amount of trolls that I think another type of more general blog would typically have, or account. I just don't see that.
No, I mean, I've seen good and bad sides of LinkedIn. So I mean, I've probably got a slightly different perspective. I mean, I if I do a video, are bound to get some message, either a DM or a comment that's slightly
off.
I don't know, like a little bit nasty, just a little bit off. Yeah, a little bit off. And normally it's an older male that will do it to me, which and I can almost stereotype it, which is sad, really. And I mean, I do a lot of content on YouTube as well. That's got nothing to do with this, nothing to do with my professional life, and that I get trolled on way more. So I mean, it's good that you haven't had to encounter it too much. I've only encountered it a little bit. I think it's just something people in our world probably need to be be prepared for, just in case, and not get disheartened
Yeah,
if it
100%.
happens.
But I feel like the good outweighs the bad, right? So you will get, some stuff. And I think the platforms that you could get trolled on the most are typically something that you might see and, the Gen X or Gen Z that they're focused on. Whereas I'm more, since I'm a little bit older, I'm more focused on the other platforms. I'm not like, I've learned how to do videos and editing and I'm trying to become, proficient in them, but that's not something that I'm really good at doing or I can produce quickly. And so maybe that's part of the reason why I haven't seen as many trolls out there, where YouTube, I feel like, is just filled with them.
Yeah. I think you're smart. I think I almost think it's harder to troll the written word in a bizarre way. Just the way in which these platforms work. I think if you want to stay a little bit safer doing this and exploring sort of your own personal branding, I think, starting with written posts either on LinkedIn or blog is probably the safest way to go about it without getting really put off at the start. Because so many people will start this, and if they get one troll, they get put off and won't ever touch it again, and just think that was a waste of, I don't know, however long it took. Right. Which would be really sad.
Yeah, no, I think, again, the good outweighs the bad. Start conservative. And then, if you're of the younger generation, you're a little bit more proficient at videos and editing and getting out there and feel comfortable with it. But it's funny because even, thinking about doing a podcast or a video, I don't even want to hear myself talk for that long. So I think, why would somebody else? Like, I'm just kind of like, you know what? Like you said, 15, 20 minutes, good enough. Got what we needed to out, straight and to the point. Don't need to drone on for an hour, right? It's just not necessary. But that's my opinion, right? I just kind of want to get to the point. But at the same time, I also don't want to see myself every 5 minutes on LinkedIn. And to do a lot of, pictures or videos or things that I think the younger generation really embraces and does well. And our older generation really kind of falls behind on.
Yeah, no, I think that's really insightful, actually. I mean, I think I'm slightly younger than you. I don't really know I don't know your age, but we won't go into that here. I mean, I'm 28, and I've kind of grown up with that whole mixture of not having internet to having cameras to having smartphones that can pretty much do everything that a camera can do. So I mean, I've played around with pretty much every type of content going, and I think I think video is a really powerful way. Audio is obviously really powerful. Written is really powerful, and LinkedIn's a really mixed bunch from a personal branding part. I still personally find written posts do way better for me, and I'll do 90% written posts because they're like, I think you touched on it. You said video can take longer. It can take longer to edit. And like we said, it's always a bit safer just to do the written word. So you can do a written post. Let's be honest. Some posts you can do in 10 seconds. They get way more engagement than a post you might work on for 10 minutes. But even 10 minutes isn't that long compared to a 10-minute video that you then need to edit and do everything else to it. It takes time. So you're right. I think it's really good advice to start off maybe doing the written word and then branch out when you feel comfortable to do so.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, a lot you're going to engage with, okay, so I'm not that much older than you, but I'm not 40 yet, but I'm getting there. So I've got a good 10 years on you. And I'm at the cusp, right? I'm at this point where technically I'm Gen X. No, I'm Gen X. So I was born 80. But I'm on the cusp of people think I'm a millennial, but I'm not. There's a lot of things that I just don't. A couple people, a couple of years difference I've had with coworkers is such a huge difference in just the way he approached things and, his viewpoint in the pictures and the videos, and felt much more confident in doing so, where I'm coming from this generation where we didn't really grow up with it, right? We had AOL and we were waiting to chat with people in 5th grade, and we had dial up and all that crazy stuff. So I feel like our generation isn't as comfortable with doing things that the younger generation just has, kind of by nature grown up with and been able to do and process well. And, I try to do it, but, age is a bitch. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I think that's sound advice, because when you look at people in our profession, you're going to have junior people, and then you're going to have more more experienced people. But I mean, I kind of come from that world where just because you've worked 20 years doesn't necessarily mean you're more experienced than someone who's been doing it for 5 years
100%.
or 2 years.
Yeah.
But we will have younger people potentially who may want to start because they're maybe a little bit more savvy, or they're a little bit more switched on, or like you say, they've grown up with the technology, they're more comfortable with it, who may actually like want to start their own branding journey. I mean, if I'm just trying to think, like, for those people who are starting off in their careers in maybe category management, procurement, like, what would you kind of advise them to do in terms of their personal branding when maybe they don't have as much knowledge or experience? Like, is it just talking about like maybe what they've done to date and desensitize it from the business and talk around that, or their learning they're doing? Kind of, have you got any thoughts on that?
That's an interesting question. For a young person starting out in procurement, it's hard because, procurement's one of these places where nobody really grows up and says, I want to be in procurement, right? It's not, you get a bunch of people from a bunch of different backgrounds. Some people who do have, like myself, this robust training that they went through, and a lot of people just don't. And so for the younger generation to learn as much as they can from the people who have gone through, these training processes and classes, and, or supply chain side has their certification and project management, right? Just to maybe, link onto that and learn as much as you can to get up to speed. But, the problem with the older generation is we had a lot of people, procurement's changed a lot, right? So a lot of these buyers and people who did, basic sourcing are just getting phased out at almost every company I hear of. It's just, they don't think they're as strategic, and they think they're more tactical. And so, because the industry has changed so much, I would say learn as much as you can up front, to try to gain that knowledge from the older generation who actually has it and maybe has had the formalized training. I think that's the best bet, because honestly, I see so many people in procurement from all these different areas and backgrounds. And I think that's why it's sometimes kind of half-assed with people and their strategies, and why it's not, as good as it could be, because you have all these people. Nobody is saying, hey, I can't wait to do strategic sourcing when I grow up. I mean, I sure didn't. I was into math and science. I worked in a lab. So... But I love numbers too. And so that's why eventually I switched to finance, and then sourcing made even more sense because of the analysis and the data. But to try to learn as much as you can from people who do have formalized processes, or going to a big company like Amgen or J&J who has, a robust training program. Whereas if you start off in a small company, you're just not going to get formalized training. It's just not there. You're going to have to learn everything on your own. So you can leverage anything from, a larger corporation, to me, it's always invaluable.
No, I mean, I think your point there actually is around those sort of the operational roles, the buyers, the assistant buyers, and kind of that grade, which is pretty much consistent across the world, wherever you go, regardless of industry. Like you say, they're getting phased out because most of them, realistically, from my experience as well, are just raising purchase orders on the back of someone doing all the work for them, and maybe a procurement manager or a supply chain manager who then just sends it over and says, I need a purchase order for this. And it takes 2 seconds to do, and they're getting paid, I don't know, 20, 30 grand a year just to do that, where you can now outsource that, or get some, not outsource it, get some software in, now do that in seconds, and the procurement manager just has to press a button and it builds it all for him. So I mean, I think that's sound advice to avoid going for those sort of roles, and going to a larger business where you'll have a program set up which will guide you through your at least your early stage of your career, and then you're free to make your decision where you go from there. No,
it's the best advice you can do, because it's an interesting time. I mean, there's so much that has changed in the past a couple of decades, but now I feel like we've hit a good stride, and there hasn't been that much, kind of changes to processes or in that sense. Everything has settled down, and, allows people to get up to speed and quickly, and the more training, the better, right? I just see so many people who lack that, and it's such I think, a hindrance, right? That they don't get formalized training that are expected to not just be buyers, but then do strategic sourcing and understand that, contracting and just all these different, SRM, things that if you don't have a background in, you got to pick them up as fast as you can. So.
Yeah. And let's be honest, you touched on two there, SRM and dealing with contracts. They're not easy things to suddenly pick up. You can't suddenly go and write a new contract or understand terms, or you don't know the best way to engage with a supplier and get value from them long term. Like, that's just not everyday. It's almost not everyday common sense, especially with regards to contracts. Like, it's a different language. It's a different
100%. And that's where I think it's tough, where you have to pick up, one of my blogs, I said, hey, some days we're like detectives trying to figure out what's going on with the company. And some days we're, we feel like we're legal experts, and there's just so much. It's so broad. It's not rocket science, but it's not inherently, easy to pick up, or just, hey, this makes sense. This is logical, especially when it comes to things like contracting. I mean, that one is the one that gives me the most migraines on a daily basis. And the most inconsistent I've seen through my organizations. I'll say that. I've seen great to not so great with our legal counsel. So it's amazing how different they all can be in handling things, and how conservative they can be, and, how supportive or lack of supportive they can be.
No, I mean, that's the exact same experience I've had. And I do a lot of work with contracts myself, and then with legal teams. And it's so massively and widely inconsistent. It's a crazy world. Dana, I'm really conscious of time. So I think we've covered so much good stuff there on how to brand yourself as a category manager, as a procurement supply chain professional in this current world. So, thanks so much for providing so many good insights there. I think hopefully a lot of people find that really beneficial and can start actually applying that to their own personal branding going forward.
Yeah, thanks for discussing with me. That was a good conversation. Appreciate it.